The coronavirus has brought challenges and uncertainties to individuals and businesses. Businesses have to find a way to grow and survive. For these reasons, a huge number of companies are investing in digital operating models. Digital transformation is one of the most strategic topics for businesses nowadays. In this executive forum, the Regional Managing Director for British Telecom, Mr. Phil Swallow, talks about his thoughts on the digitalization of businesses and his predictions for the trends in digital business-related jobs in the future.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Executive Forum. We all know one thing now. Pandemics are not just a thing of the past, right? The coronavirus pandemic brought in a lot of challenges and uncertainties to our personal and professional lives, especially if you were managing a business. From confusion to denial to panic to gradually accepting and then finally trying to live with it, we all can say, been there, done that. But if there is one aspect where the pandemic has brought in clarity, it is the necessity of a digital transformation. With most of the countries imposing strict lockdown measures, digitalization helped us going. As the going gets tough, the tough gets going. No, wait, when the going gets tough, digitalization gets going, right? The pandemic socially distanced us, so digitalization helped us remain close. Like Albert Einstein said, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. Most of the business moved to online mode. Corporate conferences and events around the world are being held virtually. Most stock exchanges moved entirely to online trading. Our university has also shifted to online mode of teaching. We even organized virtual graduation parties. The pandemic has exposed a clear digital divide. Companies that had already invested in digital operating models are now much stronger in the competition. Boards are taking note, and consequently, digital transformation is one of the most strategic topics in the boardroom agenda. As companies struggle to adjust to the new normal, we want to know how this would play out in the wider commercial canvas. As they say, never let a crisis go waste. Companies didn't go just digital, but they also have gone one step ahead and have already started investing in adapting their digital capabilities for the post-pandemic future, a future that looks very, very different from the pre-pandemic. To discuss this, we have invited a special guest who is not just a big name in the industry, but also the best person to learn from on this topic, Mr. Phil Swallow. Phil is the Regional Managing Director for British Telecom, or BT, based in Hong Kong. BT works with multinational companies across the region, helping them move to the cloud, turn collaboration into part of company culture, transform customer service, and simplify their network. Prior to BT, Phil held a number of senior positions at Dimension Data and Orange Business Services. Phil holds a master's in information technology and is an active member of the business community and sits on the main committee of the British Chamber of Commerce. Phil is originally from the UK and has been living and working in Asia for around 30 years now. I now invite Phil to join us for a candid conversation. Phil.
Thank you. Nice to see you again.
Welcome, welcome, Phil. Please have a seat.
Thank you.
So, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
How is BT in the region? How is business?
Well, first, thanks for inviting me. Very nice to be here. I mean, BT is a provider of infrastructure, right? The digital foundation for business. And We've been operating in the region for 30 years. We're the incumbent operator in the UK, so we operate the internet, voice services, television studios, we have a sports channel, and we're a provider of the majority of telecommunications services. And here in Asia, we enable our customers to do the same things as they go global, as they move and expand their business.
Okay, thank you, thank you. So to begin with, please tell us if you think that this digital transformation has been accelerated or rather delayed because of the pandemic.
I think that's the easy question first, isn't it? I mean, for sure, everything has been accelerated. I'd use the word catapulted into what I'm going to say is a digital first age. So if your company hadn't been able to trade online, hadn't been able to contact customers, as you said in the introduction, then your business is no longer a viable business. So it's definitely the easiest question. Definitely things have accelerated, and it's the start of a journey, I would say, for a lot of companies now. Those that haven't are going to have to play catch up, and I think there's a lot more to come just in terms of how companies think about digital, how they think about their customers, how they operate, and I'm sure we'll explore a bit of that in a minute.
Thank you. So businesses that had developed digital strategies prior to the pandemic are now at an advantage. Do you think that this accelerated digital transformation has worked in their favor?
Well, again, definitely, right? But I think that being digital is nothing new. And I think that we've all had a good experience at one time or another where you've dealt with a company and you've come away thinking, well, that was a really nice experience. And the one that I talk to people about, which I think is really good, when I first got to Hong Kong, I wanted to buy car insurance. I wanted to buy a car and had to buy insurance. I'd say the traditional insurance companies, you had to ring them up, it was time consuming, and someone suggested I go to an online insurer. The quote was reasonable, it was quick, effortless. I got a quote to take up the offer. There was digital images of the log card. It was very simple to go through and do what was needed to enter your details. I had a PDF, an email of the policy, and I thought to myself, well, hang on a minute. The no claims bonus, I was in Singapore before, this is going to be difficult, and they're going to have to call me and work this out. In the email chain, it said, wait for your no claims bonus. If there's no issues, you know, you'll get it. End to end, it was an entirely digital experience. The cost to serve me from the insurance company was very low. I was very happy. I had my insurance policy. And I think the reason I mention this story is it shows how businesses can really be digital, can really do the end-to-end processes that they need to do to serve customers. So it's not new, but I think the more and more large companies like BT, we're a traditional business, the more and more you think about how to adapt your business, your process, and all those sorts of things you need to do to make money, the more agile you're going to be, the better you're going to be, the happier your customers are going to be. It's a changing time, a fast changing time. And we work a lot with IDC, and I think this is a very good statistic. They say that 46% of all enterprises by 2022, 46% of what enterprises deliver will be digital or delivered by digital channels. So it's a massive mindset, it's a massive shift, not just happening today and not just happening because of the pandemic, but those that get it right are going to succeed. Those that don't are going to have a tougher time, I'd say.
So definitely the pandemic has changed almost everything. In one way or the other, either it has affected us personally or at professional levels. And definitely it has affected the way we think. So work-wise too, COVID-19 has marked a turning point on how people work. People are now thinking about flexible and work from anywhere models on permanent basis. These alternative work delivery models will be powered by digital platforms. How do you think this is going to bring in not just the new, but the brand new normal of business? And do you think return to normal will never return?
I think return to normal will never return, but let me explain. I mean, BT is in a good position in this space. We provide digital solutions to enable people to work from home. And in fact, we commissioned studies to look at the change in behaviour. And I was reading this year's one from June, which obviously is very timely and right in the middle, I'd say, of the COVID epidemic. And it talks to the fact that if you were a butcher, a baker and a candlestick maker, before the Industrial Revolution, there was no barrier between work life and home life. Everything was done from home. Then the Industrial Revolution happened. We built factories. Everyone moved to the factories. They moved into the cities. And that was the first big shift of the way that people work. The Asian financial crisis, or the financial crisis in 2008, didn't really fundamentally change the way that we worked. But COVID, I suggest, is absolutely going to change the way we work. Something like, in the survey, 70% of companies now are saying that yes, things have fundamentally changed. So people working from home is going to be a necessity. Younger people watching this show are going to demand that we work from home and give flexibility to employees. But at the same time, talk of the office being dead are very premature. The office is not dead either. It's going to change. The office is a good place for us to go to work when we live in a small apartment like we do in Hong Kong, when we have children at home, when we don't have the space. It's a good place to go and have a confidential conversation. If you work out of a laboratory or you need access to expensive hardware and systems, they're going to be in the office or they're going to be in the work environment. And the office is a sociable place. It's a place to go to meet your colleagues, to collaborate in a way. So the office is not going to go away, but to answer your question, fundamentally, I think that work will change, and it's been enabled by excellent platforms, collaboration platforms, the likes of Zoom that we've all heard about, Teams, all of these companies, these digital native companies are definitely providing the platforms to enable companies to do this efficiently, effectively, and still have that sense of collaboration. So yeah, things are changing, things are definitely changing.
Okay, so change is the only constant thing.
It is the only constant.
So since the pandemic, there has been rather a compelling demand to shift towards digital labor. So we saw videos of robots delivering food to the patients in the hospitals. Companies hence want to build such kind of infrastructure that can support them in future crises and also minimize all sorts of risks and reduce the dependence on the actual labor. How do you see our students who are yet to enter in the job market can prepare themselves? Which digital business related jobs do you think will be the trends of the future?
That's a good question. BT operates technology in a hospital that delivers food via robots. So okay. That's very topical. I think the workforce dynamic, let's call it, is changing for sure. So we're going to have delivery by drone, autonomous car, the technologies that you mentioned, and people that had those jobs are going to have to uptrain, to upskill, but I don't think fundamentally it's going to be any different to the way that generations have just moved on. What I think is different is artificial intelligence or autonomous AI, because it's going to affect the information worker now and the logical thinker, and the lawyers, the pharmacists, these sorts of people are no longer going to be safe. Right? AI will have a capacity, I think, to impact some of the jobs that haven't been impacted before. But look, robots and AI and technology can't do everything. Right? It can't think like a human, and it's the cultural side of what we do, how to deal with complex customer issues and situations. Those are the things that AI we're not going to be able to address. How do we manage conflict, manage in the office, those things are not going to be able to be addressed by technology. And I think as well, the creative side of the human spirit, any creative industry can't be replaced, right? So there's going to be a change in what people can do. There's always going to be opportunity, and I think it's an exciting time. It's definitely an exciting time for us to look at what's possible using technology. And I suppose, again, look, I work in a technology company. I'm a businessman in a technology company. I'm not a technologist as such. So technology companies, they're growing, they are moving, they're expanding. We're a good place for graduates to come into, to learn about business, to learn about technology. I think the future's bright. I don't think it's doom and gloom.
So good news, students.
It's good news.
Thank you. My next question is about digital revolution. So most of the value creation is coming from digital innovation and use of technology. So there is no denying that the future belongs to the big tech companies. However, with opportunities come great responsibilities. So do you think this business is going to get negatively exposed to the stricter regulatory regime?
I think that's a good question. It's not an easy one. So we've seen what's happened in the US, right? I think that regulation happens when government needs to or wants to either control things in its interest, wants to protect consumers, protect businesses, stakeholders and the like. That's the reason we have regulation. So it can be a good thing.
Right.
And I suppose I won't comment particularly on regulation, but let's look upon regulation as a power for good again. Because if we look at the future, and we're saying now that everything, not everything, but the majority of things are going to be delivered digitally or will be a digital experience, people need access to technology. I've done a lot of work with the World Economic Forum. In fact, BT is a sponsor there, so it's a good opportunity to learn, and I'd recommend anybody that gets access to that material, it's really, really good. And they talk about regulation as being an opportunity to provide technology to everybody, to make over half the world still doesn't have access to the internet and technology. But if we start to use regulation to enable people, to force companies to provide equal access, to invest in making sure that people, wherever they are in the world, wherever they come from, whatever circumstance they're in, to have access to digital technology, that's a good thing. So I think there is responsibility on all business, big tech, small tech, governments, infrastructure providers, telecommunications providers like ourselves. Yes, we're already regulated, but I think we're regulated for the right reasons, to provide that equal access. My feeling is that big tech is going to be, it's going to have to face some form of regulation, but I'm not going to guess what that may be if I don't know.
I hope it's all going to be good for the better. So the pandemic has proved that digitalization is a boon as it helps to keep the businesses afloat. But in many cases, SMEs may not have the right amount of capital to invest in digitalization, and hence are understandably reluctant to spend in a current environment, especially at these uncertain times. So how do you think if this is a new must-have for SMEs?
Well, I think it is a must-have, right? I think that if business is waiting for this to go away, then business is not going to be successful and it's missing a trick. So I think that you can't wait. And the good news, I think, today is that we've all heard about cloud, platform as a service, software as a service. The IT world that enables a company to go digital, that provides the platforms and the infrastructure that SMEs need to change their business, it's much more available now than it was in the past. In the past, you had to go out and buy compute, buy storage, program, do all the things that were time consuming, did consume capital. I think nowadays, Most companies want to consume technology. They want to be agile when they do so. They want to give it back when it doesn't work. They want to fail quickly. All of these things that you hear about SMEs, I think that the latest digital platforms, powered by this cloud-first way of thinking, is good, right? It's good for business, it's good for small business because it isn't capital intensive. So I think if you focus on really understanding your business, what you're trying to do for your customers, and then consuming the right sorts of technology to enable you to do so, you can make a cup of coffee and you can sell it online with PayPal and delivered by Deliveroo. It's, you know, automatically you're online, and that hasn't cost you much money, right? That's a really bad example, but I'm sure there's some good ones.
I'm sure students can relate to these kind of examples. So, since digitalization is going to become the new backbone of the businesses, how do you think the businesses will have to restructure themselves to achieve the digitalized outcomes? And what are some general tips for transforming normal businesses to digital-related businesses?
That's definitely the hardest question you've asked me. If you ask any business, any traditional business, like, and I think BT is a really good example of a traditional business, which is a technology company but has to adapt. And we're asking ourselves, well, what do we need to do to, in our words, transform? And it's not really about buying the latest technology or using the latest technology. It's about changing fundamentally the process and the way, or the use of different processes and the way that you deliver service to customers, deliver goods, those sorts of things to your customers. I think it happens at all levels in business. I think it has to be at the boardroom, and most boardrooms aren't ready, right? Most boardrooms aren't ready. Traditional banks and the like are definitely having to play catch up and understand that there's different ways to do things, different ways to run their businesses. So it has to happen at all levels. Everyone has to be fundamentally given the right steer and allowed then to experiment. And I used the word fail fast earlier, and I think that being digital allows you to do that. I'll use an example here in BT because I think this is quite important, or maybe insightful. I hope it's a little bit insightful because I'd like to think we've done the right thing. But historically, we've dug up the ground, we've put cables in, we've put systems in that have lasted for, you know, a very capital-intensive business that have been in there for 10 years or whatever. It's a very, very different business to today. And to untangle many, many years of process and many, many years of getting really good at doing that is quite frankly too difficult. So what we've done, we've created, I'd say, an adjunct business, and we've extracted some of the services that we provide. We call the business Digico. I don't think that's the most, the best name. I'm sure people come up with a much better one, but we call it Digico. And what we've done is create, in essence, something which is digitally native, which provides quotes to customers, internally to salespeople, to people talking to customers. It provisions services, it allows to change services, it's self-healing if things go wrong. But we couldn't do that in what's a very, very big installed base. So we've created a business on the side, right? And eventually I can see that overtaking our traditional business. But it's going to take time. But that's one approach. I'm not saying that's the right approach. It depends where businesses are in their evolution, I suppose. You know, the young businesses are going to start digital. The older ones like BT and other big multinationals are going to have to figure out what works for them.
So it's definitely going to be different type of new normal for them, for new businesses.
It definitely is, right? Yeah, it definitely is.
Thank you. So the business leaders globally are using this as an opportunity to carefully evaluate which kind of technology works best for them, so as to avoid this kind of technological trap. So what are your suggestions for such businesses? What should they be looking out for?
Maybe here I'll provide another example of some of the research that we do, and it's about customer contact. As we're talking about digitization and how things have progressed, I think that every company needs to take a step back and figure out what is the best way to contact their customers. What is the way that how do consumers like to be contacted, and how do consumers like to interact with you as a business? And every year we do a study on customer contact, and it's surprising because this year the changes said, well, don't discount traditional voice services, calling a contact center, for example. 75% of people that we spoke to this year have called a contact center. Now, it may be that more people this year are buying things online because they haven't been down the shops, and when things go wrong, I'll go back to AI can't always fix it, so you need to talk to a human being to get things done. So I think the lesson there is really understand what your customers want, what you want to do as a business. Don't discount what I would say is the traditional sort of way you contact customers. But there's no doubt that asynchronous communications, and I use that word because messaging is still now becoming very common in terms of how you contact customers. So WeChat in China, WhatsApp, a very sort of good channel to talk to customers. And people like that. They like the asynchronous way, which means you talk to a company, you make a cup of tea, you talk to your friend, you take a selfie. I don't know what you'd be doing at that point in time, but you get the idea. So we're definitely seeing a rise in messaging as a way that companies digitally connect to their customers. Social media is definitely on the rise, right? It's a big part of the digital world. You don't want to do customer care on social media because that gets you in a lot of trouble, but you definitely want to market products and services and leverage social media and those sorts of things as well. And I'm sort of talking on the theme now of business interacting with its customers. Security, identification, those sorts of things are definitely becoming critical because we've all been frustrated when we've been asked for our mother's maiden name or the town she lived in when she was 12 or something. And the way that companies identify you is very important for security, but it can also be very frustrating. So a lot of technology now, a lot of our insight suggests that identification is extremely important in the way that people view you, right, and the people that way we interact with you. So look, I've thrown in a number of sort of technologies there and things, but this is based upon some really good insight again that we've done that I'm willing to share, and you can share with the students and things like that, because it is quite interesting the fact that not one size fits all.
I agree.
Traditional voice is still good. For us as a telecom operator, that's good. But digital platforms and asynchronous messaging and all those things, email, are definitely there still.
Thank you. So physical and digital integration is more important now than ever before. So how do you think this is going to change the customer behavior?
I think I probably did a good job at answering that question prior, right? Because I think that customer behavior, people still want to touch things. They still want to be able to know that someone is at the end, someone is ultimately going to help me. But my experience of that digital insurer was fantastic. Is it a physical sort of relationship? No, but I got to drive the car and it was great. So look, again, I'm not sure I can provide further insight. I would just say that the physical and digital boundary is it's different for everybody. It's different for every business, and I think business leaders need to understand what matters for them, right? How do you as a business person define the process for your customer interaction or your production or whatever it is to make the best of what a digital world has to offer versus a physical one?
I agree. So do you think that businesses will now have to reconsider their priorities? And how do you think this will change their perspective about risk? And what do you think will be the critical success factors to accelerate digitalization?
That's a good question, because I think undoubtedly risk, and I think the biggest element here that at least I talk to is cyber risk, cyber security. As businesses become more digital, you have to protect every aspect of your business, every touch point of your business. Every time you have a digital touch point with customers internally, with anything, you're opening yourself up to an attack surface that can be exploited. And the biggest risk to a retailer is not having any stock on the shelves to sell, because then you don't have a business. And if someone hacked your supply chain system or whatever, and you don't have anything to sell, fundamentally you no longer have a business. So cyber security, cyber risk needs to be a board agenda item. It needs to be supported by the board. It needs to be well understood, well thought through, and like I said, because the risk of not thinking about it can be catastrophic to your business. So yeah, I mean, the risk profile of companies is definitely changing, centered around cyber, but it's going to be worth it, right? I think that with opportunity comes some risk, but you can always overcome that. So work with the right people. It reminds me, if students are looking for job opportunities, cyber security, the whole security space, and we talked about risk, compliance, governance in a digital world is not going to go away, not at all.
We keep talking about ESG. In the class also we talk about ESG and how companies are becoming more responsible towards not just E or S, but all of E and S and G part. So we keep talking about digitalization and data security. So I'm sure our students already know the importance of the data security, and these kind of things, they come with such kind of responsibility, and it must flow from the board level. And it has to reflect, and the board decisions must be reflected in the corporate thread, I should say. So that's we keep discussing in the university too.
Definitely, it's one of those areas that I personally spend a lot of time doing, right? So a lot of time we're looking at all aspects of data, how we hold data, what we do with it, and as data explodes, as the 5G, the Internet of Things, and all the things we've talked about become ever more prevalent, the amount of data and what companies can do with it, and the personal data we hold is very significant. So a lot of board time, a lot of mind time, a lot of management time is taken up trying to understand the whole risk areas. So I'm glad you talk to people about it.
And it's quite surprising, because most of the laws, they come only after a crisis has already happened and people have learned a lesson from them, and then the government surely come and tell you that, okay, you can't do this after you have already done something in the past. Yeah. So I think that's a kind of missing loop in the circle. My next question is, what are the new good practices of working that a business should bring into its constitution to facilitate a smoother transition? And what is the culture needed for adopting digital business?
That's a good question, right? I think that culture in an organization needs to constantly evolve. So as a leader, you have to trust that you've hired the people with the right skills. You have to set a direction, a digital direction, a direction that you think is going to make a difference to your business, and trust that the people you've hired, that the people that are coming up with ideas and suggestions to make your business better, you have to trust that they're going to make the right decisions and decisions for themselves. The fundamental change that I think we're seeing is that the command type organization, when one person at the top has all the ideas, is definitely gone away, right? So it's no longer about managing people, managing how they think. It's about giving people the room to go and think, and trusting that that's what they can do. So in BT, we definitely adopt this agile methodology now as we go through our programs. They're called Simplify. I think most big businesses, most businesses as they look at this, the future, the bright future that's ahead of them, of saying, well, how do we do things simpler? How do we do things better? How do we leverage technology? And if I go back to my previous example, you can't change a massive company overnight. It's going to take time. So breaking things up into, let's call them bite-sized pieces, right? Breaking things up into blocks so that you can address particular issues, particular opportunities. I think that culture is going to become more and more common. And I'm not saying that because I'm seeing it, right? Again, I'm not a professor in digital transformation, but I am a business person, and I'm seeing this happen now in my company. It's definitely happening with our customers, and it's an exciting time, right? It's a change, right? It's a good time, I think, to be coming into a workforce as well, seeing that less command and control and more about giving people the opportunity to use the skills they've learned, the skills they've got to make a difference.
Thank you. Thank you, Phil, for all the wonderful remarks and the things that we have learned from you and the insights. So any last comment, any last remark about the new normal that everyone cannot stop talking about?
No, I don't think so. Like my sort of, when I'm mentoring people, when I'm talking to people, there's a lot of opportunity. Yes, COVID has impacted work. Yes, there might be some short-term challenges, but it's opened up opportunity. How did you say? You never let a good crisis go to waste. I think that's a very good thing. I think that technology, whatever it may be, driven by AI, but whether it be 5G, Internet of Things, autonomous things, drones, you name it, is going to provide a lot of opportunities for a lot of people, a lot of opportunity for business, and we should be embracing the digital transformation. And yeah, I mean, I thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about that, and I hope that this businessman has given you some insight.
Absolutely, absolutely. We are very thankful to you. Thank you, Phil. Thank you for your insights. I hope you have learned something new from this talk.
Thanks for having me. Enjoyed it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.